Right, so this video is going to be more about identifying vertical asymptotes, horizontal asymptotes, and holes. But this one is actually going to have a hole. Now, in order for us to be able to identify holes, we're looking for factors that divide out. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to factor your function. So x plus 1 cannot be factored, but x squared minus 1 can factor as x plus 1, x minus 1. So when I divide out those common factors and I'm left with this function 1 over x minus 1, this common factor that we divided out actually becomes a whole. So I'm going to write x plus 1 over here, which means my value for the whole, my x value for the whole is at -1. We still need to find our y value. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this function 1 over x minus 1 and I'm going to plug in that x value. So I end up getting 1 over -2. So I end up getting -1/2 is my whole. So I've got this point now, -1, -1/2. That's a whole within my function. Now the last part right here, the next piece is that 1 over x minus 1. That function, we're going to try to identify verticals and horizontals. Now remember, vertical is anything that makes your denominator 0. So I have a factor in my denominator. My factor is x minus 1. I'm going to write my vertical asymptote as x equals 1. All right. Now the next part, that's going to be my horizontal asymptote. And in this case, we call it bottom heavy because there is no exponent in my numerator. It's just a value of 1. There is a variable in my denominator, so there's more variables in my denominator than my numerator. And when it is bottom, our horizontal asymptote is always y equals 0. So now we identified our horizontal, our vertical, and our holes. Next piece is always our x-intercepts and our y-intercepts. Remember, our x-intercept is going to be when y equals 0. So I take my function, set it equal to 0. But remember, we don't care about the denominator. The only time a fraction can ever equal 0 is if my numerator is equal to 0. Well, 1 can never equal 0. So there is no x-intercept. Right? There might be a y-intercept, and most likely there could be, or there might be. So we're going to have to go ahead and remember that in order to find a y-intercept, x equals 0. So 1 over 0 minus 1, we get 1 over -1, which is -1. So our x value is 0. Our y value was -1. In this case, we do end up getting a y-intercept. All right, so that's how you identify your holes, find those common factors that divide out. Then you can find your verticals and your horizontals. And then after that, you can find your x-intercepts and your y-intercepts.